Commissioner Andrews?
Present.
Commissioner Goldstein? Commissioner Goldstein?
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Patton?
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Roche?
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Stevens?
Present.
Thank you. Chair Bonilla?
Present. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Before we jump into public comments, I just want to welcome the newest member of our commission. Welcome this evening. It's great to see you, and thank you for being with us.
Thank you all very much. I'm happy to be here and joining you. I'm looking forward to getting to know all of my fellow commissioners over the next couple of years and working with you. And just wanted to thank city staff for all of their efforts over the last couple of weeks to get me up to speed and prepare me for my meetings and my work. So thank you all, and looking forward to working with you.
Excellent. Welcome aboard. You're working with a good group. All right. It's now time for public comments. So speakers or members of the public will have 3 minutes to address the Planning Commission on items that are not on the agenda this evening during this public comment period. Ms. Chan will moderate our public comment portion of this evening's meeting. So with that, Ms. Chan, do we have any members of the public who wish to address the commission this evening?
Yes, Chair, we have one person. Okay, so if you wish to speak and you are using the Zoom application, please click the raise hand button. If you're dialing in, press *9 to raise your hand on the phone and use *6 to unmute yourself. If you are streaming the meeting through Zoom on your computer, but dialing in via phone, please mute yourself so that there is no feedback sound during the meeting. If there is disruptive feedback or excessive noise during the meeting, your audio will be disabled. All right, hang on. Greg, please unmute yourself.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
I'm a local, well, a little background about myself. Four generations Hayward resident. I've been here my whole life, born in the Hayward hospital. I know the city, I know it well. And I just think that this idea about a pot place on the Foothill Freeway is a bad decision. The people that go through downtown Hayward go at a high rate of speed. This posted speed limit is 25. It is not 25. They go up 50, 60 miles an hour. There's more accidents there in that big intersection. And it's a blind coming around that bend, coming from Jackson D. They come around there at a high rate of speed. There's blood on the sidewalks from accidents there. They will be high people coming out of that driveway onto Foothill when they're supposed to be going 25 miles an hour, but that's not it. Crossing C Street, people try to beat those lights because they're long lights and there's speeding going across there. There's people smoking, a lot of pot downtown. You look at the new facility on Main Street and B, there's, I'm sorry, the wrong kind of crowd that's hanging around what we wanted downtown. I think we need to put this out to the sticks. We need to get it away from downtown. The parking garage is a mess over there now. People smoking pot in their cars. Can you still hear me? It looks like something sign in.
Greg, we can hear you, but this is
anyway,
a time
the last
for.
comment I had about the garage over there. That's where they will park. They smoke in that garage now. There's feces. There's urine all over. It smells like a cesspool. That's supposed to be a nice little place for us to come downtown Hayward. And there's people smoking on the steps, drinking. It's that corner's a mess. My business has been downtown for years, and the traffic is getting so bad now you can't even do business in downtown Hayward.
Great. Thank you for your comment. And I would like to remind you and other members of the public that this particular public comment period is for items not listed on tonight's agenda. And it seems like the comment you're making is related to an item on the agenda, and we have a separate public comment portion for that. but we do appreciate your comments this evening. So do you have any other comments you would like to make not related to an item on the agenda this evening?
I don't know what's on the agenda. I did not get it.
This item is on the agenda. So is there anything else you would like to discuss other than the pot club?
Oh, there's more than just a pot club. I thought it was just a pot club today.
It is, and that's coming up later on our agenda.
Okay, so no, I only hear about the pot club.
Okay, so you can call back in during that portion if you have any additional comments. Thank you for your comments this evening.
What time does that coming in?
It's going to come in as soon as we get through public comment, so maybe another 10 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you, Greg. Ms. Chan, do we have any additional public comments this evening?
Thank you, Chair. At this time, no. We do not. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we will go ahead and close the public comments period, and we will move on to our first public hearing item this evening. The public hearing item we will be hearing is a proposed commercial cannabis retail dispensary with an ancillary retail delivery within an existing commercial located at 22701 Foothill Boulevard and 1055 C Street. The applicant is requesting approval of a conditional use permit. So with that, we will move into our staff report on this item, and I believe Mr. Martinez will be giving that report.
That is correct. Thank you, Chair. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and this is a new setup for me, so I do apologize if there is somewhat of a lag. I'm actually at home this time, but I will try my best to accommodate. All right, so I should be sharing my screen now. I hope you can all see it.
We can see it.
Perfect, thank you. All right, so good evening, Chair and Commissioners. My name is Marcus Martinez, Associate Planner with the City of Hayward. The item I am presenting tonight to you is a conditional use permit application for a proposed commercial cannabis retail dispensary located at 22701 Foothill Boulevard, as well as 1055 C Street. Before I get started, I just want to provide a brief overview of the cannabis regulations and how we've gotten here today. In November 2017, the City Council adopted land use and regulatory ordinances to allow for the establishment of cannabis businesses within the City of Hayward. These included distribution, manufacturing, cultivation, testing, delivery, and retail operations. As part of that effort, it was determined that there would be no more than 3 dispensaries allowed in the downtown area. In late 2018, early 2019, the City Manager's Office conducted a request for proposals process, which included scoring applications and conducting interviews with prospective operators, which subsequently led to the City Council issuing cannabis permits for all sectors to allow operators to locate site-specific locations for their businesses and undergo their land use entitlement process, such as the one we're reviewing tonight. In March 2019, the City Council amended the land use regulations to reduce the minimum buffer requirements from 1,000 feet to 500 feet between proposed cannabis dispensary locations. And since early 2019, the Planning Division has processed land use applications for commercial cannabis businesses. And tonight we are reviewing an application from Jiva Life for a proposed retail dispensary with ancillary delivery services. This brings me to the project site. So the slide above provides a quick vicinity map of where the proposed cannabis dispensary will be located at the corner of Foothill Boulevard and C Street in our downtown specific plan area. I would also like to note that this would be the last of 3 cannabis dispensaries allowed in downtown. The first approved was Hayward Station, that's now operating as Cookies, and that one is located at 1004 B Street. And the second was Auntie Honey's, located at 1147 B Street, as shown on the map. Zooming into the project site a little bit more, the project site includes 2 parcels with a total project site area of 0.45 acres. The first of which is 22701 Foothill Boulevard, which includes the actual building the proposed dispensary would be occupying, and 1055 C Street, which is the parking lot that will serve both commercial buildings. The project site is also located in the downtown Main Street zoning district with a corresponding land use designation of city center, retail, and office commercial. And to circle back and provide a brief project summary, the applicant tonight is seeking approval of a conditional use permit application with a request to reduce the sensitive land use buffer in order to operate a commercial cannabis retail dispensary with ancillary delivery services. To achieve that, the applicant would complete a significant exterior remodel and tenant improvement to the existing commercial building, as well as complete related site improvements to the properties, including new landscaping, parking lot upgrades, and enhanced site lighting and security measures. The business operations of the cannabis dispensary would include the retail sales of cannabis and cannabis-related products, including flower, concentrates, edibles, beverages, etc., for individuals of legal age. This, of course, would include being 21 years old for recreational use and 18 years old for medicinal use, and no on-site consumption would be permitted at this location. The proposed hours of operation for this business would be from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., 7 days a week. Two security guards would be present on site at all times of the business hours, and the business would be required to implement their security plan as well as their odor mitigation plan. The slide above shows the proposed site plan and project site. The applicant is proposing to demolish some dilapidated portions of the building, and this includes the old patio enclosure area and a rear part of the building that's towards the parking lot. The site design will create a landscape paseo that links Foothill Boulevard to the parking lot area, where the main entrance will be located for the establishment. With regard to parking, the new site design will change the parking lot from one-way to two-way traffic and will include 20 automobile parking spaces, 4 bicycle parking spaces, and a dedicated delivery and distribution loading zone for the business. The slide above shows the interior floor plan for the operation. In total, the building is about 2,500 square feet in floor area, and 50% of that will be used as the customer realm, and the remainder will be used for authorized access only for back of house operations. The back of house operations would include secured storage, order assemblies, shipping and receiving, as well as a management office and an employee break room. As mentioned previously, there will be a new building access for the building on the south side of the structure, which will serve as a primary exit and entrance for customers. And lastly, as part of the significant building remodel, the second floor component of the existing building would be abandoned. Here are some project renderings of the site improvements, which shows a new paseo entrance between the 2 commercial buildings that will link the parking lot to Foothill Boulevard. The exterior remodel will incorporate a modern design aesthetic with a flat roof, wooden slats, storefront windows, and metal awnings facing the street that will be coupled with the enhanced site landscaping to make it overall an attractive and welcoming experience for pedestrians as well as for passing traffic. As proposed, a 600-foot buffer from this parcel would touch 4 parcels with sensitive land uses, and these include Team Brewers Karate on Main Street, High Scores Arcade on B Street, the Children's Park at Juliana Plaza on Mission Boulevard, and the Kumon Learning Center on Foothill Boulevard. Pursuant to the Hayward Municipal Code, the reviewing authority has the discretion to reduce the 600-foot buffer based on certain findings that are further explained within the staff report, as well as the required findings and attachment 2 of this document. It is important to note, it is important to note that the other 2 approved cannabis locations did overlap with some of these sensitive land uses as well. Staff has conducted their analysis on the proposed project and believes that the applicant is proposing a significant investment into the vacant building and site that will result in an overall improvement to the area and to substantially enhance a dilapidated prominent corner in our downtown area. Staff believes that the proposed use will be aligned with the vision and the goals of our downtown area and our general plan goals and policies to support more walkable environments and pedestrian traffic, which will in turn support other local businesses in our downtown area. The applicant did submit a thorough safety and security plan, which was reviewed by our Hayward Police Department, and that aims to deter and prevent theft, loitering, on-site consumption at the site and the surrounding area, and to maintain a safe and welcoming atmosphere for both customers and passing pedestrian traffic. And lastly, the business does comply with all standards of our Hayward Municipal Code, with the exception of the request to reduce the 600-foot sensitivity buffer. With respect to the California Environmental Quality Act, the project is deemed categorically exempt per section 15301 of the CEQA guidelines for existing facilities, and thus no additional environmental review is required at this time. And with that, staff recommends that the Planning Commission recommend to the City Council approval of the conditional use permit based on the required findings and subject to the conditions of approval. This concludes staff's presentation, and staff is available for any questions. I'm also accompanied by our senior detective, Wright, from the Hayward Police Department in case there's any questions for them. The applicant team has also joined the call, and they have a presentation prepared and are available for any questions as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcus. Before we go to commissioner questions, we'll go ahead and take the applicant's presentation or any comments the applicant would like to provide, and then we'll move into commissioner questions.
Thank you. Good evening, Planning Commission members. Jiva is a minority-owned commercial cannabis business that was awarded by the City of Hayward to seek a CUP to operate a retail storefront with delivery services. Next slide, please. My name is Raj, and I am the Principal and Managing Director for Jiva, which has 7 retail storefront permits in California, including Union City, Santa Rosa, Napa, Stockton, San Francisco, and San Bernardino. I'm also the owner of the Greenhouse Group, which has 2 retail storefront licenses in Washington State. Next slide, please. Jiva's local equity commitment features 4 components: an annual charitable contribution of 1% of gross revenue, up to 500 hours of paid or unpaid volunteering service, up to 2% of profit towards sponsorships for and/or donations to local programs, organizations. And we intend to hire 75% of our employees to complete our staff from the City of Hayward and/or Alameda County. Next slide, please. Our labor and employment philosophy is really employee retention. We want to offer employees quality jobs paying $18 to $20 hourly that include various benefits. We anticipate to hire up to 18 employees in year 1 and have entered into a labor peace agreement with Teamsters Local Union 70 that will be effective when we have over 20 employees. Next slide, please. We have a 2 to 4 week employee training program that incorporates 6 steps, starting with our employee handbook, safety and health orientation for the employees, cannabis product education and inventory management, and Jiva's hospitality standards, regulatory compliance and best practices, and shadow or accompanied shifts. Next slide, please. The retail storefront will be compatible with the surrounding neighborhood, as it will not be a nuisance and is not an impairment to the character of the zoning district, not a detriment to public health or safety, and we believe will provide an increased security presence for crime prevention. We are a member of the Chamber of Commerce, and we plan to reach out to the Hayward Business Association and Hayward Improvement Association to support their efforts to revitalize downtown Hayward. Next slide, please. We will hire a local neighborhood liaison and train employees to embody our good neighbor policy. Generally, neighboring businesses or residents are concerned with odor and waste. We have secured CAMFIL to install any needed odor mitigation equipment, and GEICA to handle any cannabis waste management services, which in our case as retailers is generally returned or expired products. Our community benefits are tied to our local equity commitment, which include the 1% of gross revenue towards charitable contributions in alignment with the city's goals to assist local nonprofits. This gives you a general idea of what that may look like from year to year. Our capital expenditures for this project for construction and FF&E are approximately $1 million. And I like to safely incorporate 3 months of operational expenses to have as cash on hand. The financial model was derived estimating 250 daily transactions, of which 20% of those will be through delivery service sales. I anticipate storefront sales to drop and delivery service transactions to increase year over year. If we are fortunate enough to hit our projected forecast, as seen by the blue line indicating gross revenue, the table on the left indicates what the 7% tax rate may equate to. Next slide, please. Our standard operating procedures are outlined in detail in our business and operations plan and include opening and closing protocol, ID verification, delivery service procedures, product management, and inventory control. We will utilize the state's track and trace system metric, COVA for our point of sale system, Dutchie for our menu and online ordering platform, Baker for customer relationship management, and our marketing strategy advisors company Foot Traffic for our online presence. Here's a quick glance at our product mix that we will carry and the estimated percentage of sales for those 4 product category types. Next slide, please. We do have a cash management system that includes an internal cash handling solution by title, armored vehicle service by Hardcar, and banking through Payzelle. Our security plan is robust, as Marcus has mentioned, and will be revetted by a qualified security consultant prior to operations. It includes architectural security, the electronic security system, and operational security. And we intend to contract with Hayward South County Security for on-site security guard services. Our fire and life safety plan will be reviewed and addressed by Jiva's fire protection engineer and shall include a building evacuation plan, fire alarm and monitoring system, and fire prevention diligence. As a retailer, there is no use of flammable, combustible, or hazardous materials. Here is a quick peek at our estimated pre-operations timeline from issuance of a CUP that includes steps to get our building permit application and plans submitted. Construction, we anticipate about 4 months for that just because the building needs that type of improvement, and a pre-launch period of about 4 weeks thereafter. Here are some of Jiva's advisors and consultants. And here today, I'd like to introduce Patrick Orozco, the property owner, Matt Knorr, the facility development advisor, and Armando Guido Lopez, the architect. Thank you.
Thanks, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Patrick Rosco. I'm principal of the Rosco Group. We are a second-generation retail development company. We specialize in chain store development, traditionally serving national retail tenants such as Target, Costco, Starbucks, you name it, we've done it. We've built approximately 3 million square feet in the last 40 years. Have projects active throughout the state. We've been active in 12 different states. We entered the cannabis space a couple of years ago with one goal. It was to identify the second generation of operators that would be essentially allowing cannabis to graduate into a normal medical shopping experience consistent with CVS or Walgreens. Incidentally, both of which are going to a small format store. We encountered Raj after competing with another applicant and actually acquiring this particular property for that applicant before the licensing competition took place. The site was identified after evaluating 46 different properties within the city of Hayward's green zone. We had determined as retail professionals that this particular site offered the best of both worlds. It could be accretive to the downtown shopping experience, but sufficiently off of your main drag to avoid members of the community that might have bias against cannabis use. Probably most importantly, the location is capable of targeting a visiting regional shopper as they come through town, which means one primary thing: it maximizes sales, which in turn maximizes tax revenue. Happy to walk you through some of the decisions that were made on the design of the building. If you could please advance the slide. The Hayward Arts Crab Shack, as it was once known, is well beyond its useful life. The building is severely dilapidated. We've had, a significant number of problems with homelessness and people breaking in, and are committed to cleaning up that intersection so it's no longer a heavily blighted portion of your downtown. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. The interior condition of the building looks worse than the exterior, if you can believe that. Next slide, please. So the design of the retail experience intends to marry the existing two-story volume of what was originally a residential building by demolishing the appendage that's at the intersection, cleaning up the landscaping, and demolishing an addition that had occurred years ago on the backside of the building in order to provide ADA access and to improve the circulation of the traffic, which is now one way and actually quite confusing as a customer. The storefronts will be inviting, very consistent with what you'd find in any type of traditional retail store, whether that be Starbucks or a Sephora. You'll have a building that is intentionally benign and at the same time easy to identify and find for those customers that know what they're looking for. Next slide, please. We'll also improve the cityscape and street presence. The building is brought to the edge of the property line to address the street. We are very familiar with the specific plan for the downtown, whereby C Street will eventually be two-way. We think that will be a boon for our circulation patterns and help the business, but wanted to make sure that the street presence was acknowledged as a priority versus what a traditional retailer would do, which would be to put the parking in the front and then the building in the back, as you typically see in, say, a 7-Eleven. Next slide, please. Significant attention has been given to how the exterior is treated in the landscaping. Initially we had an outdoor public seating space, and then having owned the building for a couple of years, we picked up quite quickly on what that meant in terms of visitors that are taking up residence in that seating. So instead we're prioritizing a very attractive landscaping scheme that will complement the new architectural gesture that's occurring in the facade. That's generally it. There are a couple more slides that you're welcome to circulate through, but in general, what you can expect from that corner is to see a very significant upgrade and modernization of what's now very tired and I'll call it an embarrassment because I own it, an embarrassing building in a key core downtown position. We're excited to be at the end of this road. We've been working on this project for now over a year and a half. And have been thoroughly impressed with Raj and his professionalism. Think that he and his team will serve you extremely well, well into the future and make you all proud. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we appreciate all those comments. Is there anything additional the applicant would like to say before we move into questions from the commissioners?
No, I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
All right, thank you. Commissioners who have any questions either for staff or for the applicant, please raise your hand and I will make my way around the horn. Let's see here. Whose hands do we have raised? Commissioner Roche, it looks like your hand was raised first.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you to the applicants for the presentation and to Marcus for the staff presentation. I had questions because obviously, if you don't mind me calling you Raj, since you said it that way, I wanted to ask you, you obviously have really significant experience in this area. And I'd like to know what kind of interventions you've been part of or, using neighborhood liaisons to help with the problem that is obvious in our downtown. There are problems in our parking garages that are right across the street from where you are. And, people will be coming to the site and using somewhere in the city. And so I'm just wondering what experience you have with that.
So what I can tell you is that the neighborhood liaison essentially acts as the liaison between us and the local neighborhood. And we believe the best way to actually prevent loitering or anyone trying to use product on site, which is completely prohibited, is through communication. And our security is obviously trained to handle these things. I mean, we've done this quite a bit, and generally speaking, I can't speak for other retailers, but when I hear about retailers having issues about people hanging out in the parking lot and consuming within the vicinity, that's a lack of the training from the employees. The employees have to be part of the neighborhood integration. They have to know and have awareness, and they need to be trained to let people know that, hey, come purchase your product, enjoy, but please use your product safely at home. You can't use it here. If they're doing it, because if we're hiring 75% of locals, they're going to know a lot of the people that come in. So that in itself is helpful. The liaison will address any business folks or residents that need to speak to us about anything. We're always open ears for any suggestions for improvement, but we don't see it being that big of an issue. And I still find it hard to believe that retailers have this issue. It's really, something that can be handled internally and shouldn't be a nuisance.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that. And a really same question to staff. Obviously these are, this will be our third dispensary downtown, and we want to make everyone part of the solution, I guess, in this. And what are we doing to address that? If there is an extra problem with the 3 dispensaries.
Yeah, I mean, I can kind of speak to it at a high level. I'm not sure if I'll be able to kind of provide a completely satisfactory answer, but I think these operations are still relatively new. I think for Cookies, for example, that just opened up maybe just last month, is still relatively new in this operation. So I'm not sure where we have the sufficient data to draw a nexus where people are going to a dispensary and that directly leads to them using it locally. So I know that's not the best answer, but I think right now we just don't have sufficient data to really draw that nexus. I think the closest dispensary that does have more of a historical activity is Garden of Eden, which is in the county's jurisdiction, just down Foothill Boulevard. So yeah, I know that's not the best answer. But.
No, that's okay. I mean, I appreciate it. I think it's just going to be something that, everyone is going to have to work on, and we're all going to have to keep tabs on so that it isn't adding to the problem and that solutions can be found to deal with that.
Right. And I think as these continue to operate and as we learn how they operate and if there's any calls for service or if we see trends, I think that's where the city would likely have ongoing conversations and hopefully partner with these dispensaries to see how those issues could be mitigated. But since only one is active and currently in operation, and they've only been in operation for maybe just over a month, I guess it's kind of a wait and see right now.
Okay. And then I was also wondering, have you guys already reached out to the Portuguese Hall across the street? Because I know they were one community letter that was sent in, and I'm wondering if there have already been conversations with them to talk about possible mitigation of their concerns.
No, we have not yet. I just heard you're the first telling me that they submitted a public comment. But what we first do is we submit an introductory letter to everyone around 600 feet or 1,000 feet around our space. And normally we would host an open house at the facility, but the facility is not in any shape to host anyone. Obviously, the time that we're in, we'll probably do a virtual open house. And we want to hear from everyone. We want to be an open book. We want to show them our security plan. I think if they actually see who we are and how prepared we're trying to be, I think that'll give them some level of solace and maybe be at ease. But we want to be a good neighbor, and we want to show everyone that we're just like any other retailer. And just quickly to touch on what Marcus was saying in your previous question, if this helps you in any way, on our busiest day at an LA store, that's not a Jiva store, but they have 9 parking spaces. The average customer time was about 7 minutes and 45 seconds on that day. And our business model is to get our sales to be 50% through delivery and online sales. We will be really pushing online orders. And as we've seen now through COVID, I guess, unfortunately, but it's something that works. And we will try to reduce as much as we can, storefront sales if possible.
All right. Thank you. Thank you everyone for the feedback.
Thank you, Commissioner Roche. Commissioner Goldstein.
Thank you, Chair. I think Commissioner Roach covered all of the questions that I was going to ask, but given that we have had some concern over people smoking pot in the downtown parking lots, and I realize that those locations are probably not where the dispensaries are located, But what does the city do? Maybe Detective Wright, you might be able to answer this question, whether or not the police department is doing anything about that.
Hi, thank you. That's a great question. If we get a call for service of that is illegal to do in the city of Hayward because we do have a smoking ordinance that covers both tobacco products as well as cannabis products. So if we do get a call for service of people smoking cannabis in a public area, we generally will dispatch officers to that area. For the most part, I believe that they handle it with warning. If needed to, they could possibly issue a citation. I think it would depend on the situation.
All right, very good. And Marcus, is that actually accurate that the parking lots that are in question where cannabis use is occurring today is actually not the parking lots adjacent to Cookies or the other dispensary locations?
I think it's kind of hard to say. I don't think nothing really precludes anyone besides the law of just making their purchase and finding some random location to consume cannabis. I mean, to some degree, it's out of our control. I think what doesn't really help, or at least our current parking structure situation, is COVID. I mean, there is kind of a lack of activity in downtown, so we have a very kind of empty and desolate parking garage, which unfortunately doesn't lend itself to having illicit activity. So I think to the greatest extent possible, we do try to deter that. But given that Cookies is just so much of a recent operator, I can't say for sure there is a link between public consumption and their operation.
Okay, and in any event, and that's a fair response, I think, but the conditions of approval in each of these cases makes it not only their responsibility in their immediate area, but also they're subject to additional review if the situation deteriorates in that area. And so there is a direct link there from the Hayward Police Department to each of these dispensaries, and hopefully working together with the community and these business operators, we can make sure that the area is safe and free of the smell and other effects of marijuana use in that area. So thank you, Chair. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Goldstein. Commissioner Ali Sullivan.
Great, thank you. I have a few questions here for the applicant as well as for city staff. First off, I wanted to thank both the city and the applicant for very detailed and thoughtful applications, including the 200-page document that the applicant submitted detailing their business plan, which I had a couple questions on. First, the first concern I had was obviously on the reduction in the displacement between the applicant and sensitive uses. I was going to ask city staff on that and appreciate the guidance and clarity that the other dispensaries downtown also had sensitive uses within that 600 feet. So that's less of a concern for me. The sales tax estimates, obviously the benefit that the city would gain from this is the sales tax estimates. I pegged them a little lower than the applicant did. I think based on the applicant's documents, there's a 0.5% sales tax and then an additional 6% specific City of Hayward cannabis tax. So, depending on how you sort of break it down and what those estimates are between, starting at about $300,000 a year, that 6%, for city staff, I'm curious if that's restricted or if it's discretionary funding, if city staff knows.
Unfortunately, I do not know. I know there is 6% that is a general tax, I believe, and there is a 1% that would go to what's known as a Hayward Foundation, which all cannabis businesses would be paying into, and that would somehow be directed to benefit the community.
Right. For the applicant, a couple of questions here. In the business plan, you cite 6 active permits. I'm curious if those are permits that you've received or if you actually have any stores that are currently operating. I'll give you a couple of questions here. The second, in the business plan, you cite that the numbers are based off of an assumption that 1 out of every 5 Hayward residents is going to be a customer. It seems relatively high to me, and so I'm curious if you could dig into that a little bit, that 20% or 31,400 potential customers. And then I'm also curious if you can discuss the community benefits program. It's noted in the application, but exactly what that is going to entail wasn't entirely clear to me. Those are the three questions for the applicant.
Yeah, let me. I'll start with the first one. Those are thoughtful questions. And real quick, you had mentioned in the plan it may have said 6% at a time before Hayward's cannabis tax was 6%, and then they instituted the charitable contribution to make it 7%. And I believe your first question was about the permits. Yes, the San Bernardino store actually just opened in September 25th. Union City is going to open in April, and so will all the other stores. As you guys are probably learning, and I've been learning now, this is just a long and arduous process. It just takes time. But by the end of next year, all these stores will be up and open. For example, Stockton and Napa, I just received the clearances literally a couple months ago.
Will they all be operated under the same brand and the same brand aesthetic?
Yes, and no. For certain businesses, there's different owners, and the brand might be a Jiva, DBA, something else, but it may vary from city to city.
Great.
Your next question was about the number of customers in Hayward that may be cannabis users. It's more of a regional number. At 1 out of 5 does seem very high. I actually think from polling, people sometimes say they don't use and they use, but based on the volume that we're seeing, and especially the spike during COVID, I want to say it's safe to say that my opinion is that 1 out of 5 folks in the Bay Area may use cannabis recreationally or medicinally.
That's fair.
And your third question.
Yeah, community benefits program.
Yeah, so we wanted to actually have the ability to allocate the 1% to different nonprofits that we've identified in our plan. And when at this time, John Stefanski was the head of the program at that time, and he sent us an email saying the 1% is going to be instituted with all the cannabis retailers. I think it's actually a good idea. City can allocate it where they want to. I think our number one thing that we do, or we are proposing to do that most people may not do, is volunteering services. I think that is important, whether they're paid or unpaid. 500 hours sounds like a lot, but that's throughout the course of a year. And I think that's our best asset as providing community benefits directly that can make an effect to businesses and residents of the city.
Great. And then the last questions are for Patrick Rosco. As the owner, so 2 questions. One, do you also own the salon or the second building? So are you under control of the entire parcel, if you will? And then if so, are any improvements going to be made to that building to tie it in aesthetically to the applicant's construction site?
It's a good question. Yes, we do own that building. That particular tenant is on a legacy lease. There apparently was term to her lease beyond the expiration of the lease, which we thought was due to expire in April. And she procured a 5-year extension. So she's got apparently 5 more years on her lease. She's in a very low rent rate based on a deal that was cut 10 years ago. So we will be making sure that building does not fall into disrepair like the building next door. But for all intents and purposes, our intention long-term is to reinvest in that building and modernize it in the same capacity that the proposed development here includes. And it's too soon to tell what type of use may co-tenant there. But it's this particular location was attractive to us because we felt that after the funding source to rebuild the building on the corner, which is going to be quite expensive, there were a variety of different, very traditional retail tenants available to us, from restaurant uses to retail uses. So conventional use next door would be something that I would forecast.
Thanks. Thank you, Chair.
Chair Bonilla, if I could clarify, this is Michael Vigilio from the City Attorney's Office. I just wanted to clarify one response regarding the sales tax. It is a 7% sales tax, and it's a general tax. meaning that it can be used for any municipal purpose. So none of that revenue is earmarked until the city council makes its budget decisions.
Thanks.
Thank you for that clarification. Commissioner Andrews?
Thank you, Chair. I have a couple questions. Some of them have been answered already, thanks to the other commissioners asking some of the same questions I was thinking of. But I do have a question regarding the neighborhood liaison. Would that liaison be able to, would they be working with organizations as well, or their sole purpose is to make sure that aren't issues at the store?
It's a great question. So what we do is we have kind of a Jiva community relations advisor, and each neighborhood liaison from each city kind of works with her on these things. So and she's a woman, but the person that we hire, it might be Hector, it might be somebody else that's local to Hayward, but yeah, they would be working with her on working with me, with the city on doing anything that we want to do from a community benefit standpoint.
So I know as part of your conditions of approval, you'll have to clean up trash, but trash is a huge issue in our city, not just with dumping, but with some of the businesses that have come in, especially dispensaries and fast food. And so I was wondering if this neighborhood liaison would partner with our task force, Keep Hayward Clean and Green, to help clean up the city, not just at your store, but throughout the city, because trash from these stores travel. So I
think that sounds like our first volunteering effort. It makes the most sense, and we would absolutely be involved in doing that and helping with the city cleaning up the streets.
And also was curious if the neighborhood liaison would also work with this task force to adopt a block, because then there's some sense of ownership as well, not just doing community service hours.
I'm sorry, when you say adopt a block, can you elaborate?
So adopt a block is when a business takes over a street to make sure it's clean, and when there's issues, they'll go out and clean it up, and then call the city to pick up the trash that they collected. It's a way to make sure a street is always clean, and just wanted to see if the business would be interested in pursuing something like that, because it will reduce some of the strain on our city resources.
Absolutely. I don't see why we would not want to be involved with something like that. I mean, keeping the entire vicinity around our business and for everyone that comes to downtown only helps us, which in turn helps the city and the residents. It's just a big circle. So we want to be part of that circle. So yeah, that would be something that we'd be interested in.
Also, I noticed on your design, can someone pull up the design again? I don't know if that's possible, just of the frontage of the building. So I believe you're going to have security guards there pretty much 24/7, right? Or is it certain hours? Or I know, is it 9 to 9? I know your store hours are not 24 hours, but right. What is your security situation again?
Yeah, it's going to be during store hours, half hour before, half hour after close as well.
And close as well. Okay. So the pink and white area behind the frontage here, that is going to, yeah. So where the ramp is, where the 88 ramp is,
sure.
You see on both sides, that's going to be a beautiful canvas for some of our street artists out there who may or may not be approved to decorate. So I would like to see some kind of, well, I can't say recommendation right now, but would you be interested in doing public art to reduce some of the nuisance that we have with graffiti there?
I'm glad you brought that up. In our original development permit application that we submitted, and we may have mentioned it again here, that we would be open to having some type of mural or art program. So legit artists can actually either put stuff up. We were thinking about maybe the side of the building, but yeah, absolutely. That's something that we would be open to as well.
Also, this is a very prominent corner. One of the first things you see when you come into Hayward. So I don't know if you're interested, but would you also be interested in public art in the sense of a sculpture or something to identify that corner as a landmark and kind of also detract a little bit of what this being the first thing people see when they entered Hayward?
I think that's a great idea, and I think it's something that'll add value to the entire site and to Hayward.
Okay. Another question I had is actually for PD. Is they're still on? Okay, great. So what I understand that their PD could see this as an opportunity to kind of corral these nuisance issues in order to patrol. What is PD doing now? Because I understand what our planner Martinez was saying about COVID, and I definitely seen an increased activity in front of our storefronts because of COVID. And when I'm out at farmers markets, they are definitely hanging out in the parking lot. So if something like this comes to our downtown, what is PD's plan on addressing nuisance issues? Because it's great that they have a neighborhood liaison, but I think a lot of people are going to believe what has been identified is that people are going to do this in a car, and there's going to be trash, or there's going to be, smoking in the parking lot. But what is PD doing in terms of the other nuisance issues with this compounded with this type of use coming to the downtown?
Well, I know that we have our district command unit, which focuses specifically on community policing in the downtown area. And I am not in that unit, so I can't speak exactly to what it is that they do. But I do know that we do have several issues in the downtown, and we've had several issues like even before the dispensary started coming in. So as far as if these dispensaries if we can see an increase in this type of activity and we can directly relate it to the dispensaries, then that's where my unit, we would then work with the dispensary owners and try to see what kind of solutions can we come up with.
Have you seen any community complaints so far with the new dispensary that's opened?
I have not seen anything come across my desk. So we haven't had any kinds of complaints or calls for service directly related to any kind of mismanagement or anything of that nature at this time.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And then I understand that you're doing local hire for this location, 75%. What are you doing for equity programs that could be out there for hiring formerly incarcerated individuals who are doing the same activity that you're doing?
So I'm part of the San Francisco Office of Cannabis Social Equity Program. I partnered with the social equity applicant. He actually has a nice database of social equity applicants. Cities are starting to develop those. They just did it in Stockton. They're doing it in Tracy. Part of our local hire to try to get up to 75% that are residents in Hayward or Alameda County is focusing on, and it's kind of one of our practices will be kind of trying to recruit or allure minorities, women, people from the LGBTQ community, veterans, senior citizens. And we'd like to get, 50% of our employees that reflect those communities. And also folks that have been, if you've been vetted by a city as a social equity applicant, that would be excellent for us to have as a hire. And we will be trying to actually advertise to folks like that in the East Bay that can qualify. I don't know how many of them are going to actually be in Hayward, but we are open to hiring folks that qualify or meet those equity program regulations. Every city has their own, but we get what it is, and we want to be part of the solution, not the problem.
And then my last question is, would you be able to, this actually might be a question for legal, but are you able to do kind of a pop-up area for local businesses if they have a product that they want to sell? Like I've seen it in some stores where they say, this artist is from Oakland, here's a little area where you can purchase goods. do a partnership. I don't know if you take a percentage or not, or you just want to offer the retail space. Will you be interested in doing something for our Hayward businesses who may not have the opportunity to obtain a storefront due to issues related to COVID? They're having a hard time starting up, or they're, are getting their feet off the ground and they want to own a business and eventually they can grow their business and build something in Hayward?
Are you referring to a local business that would be that would have a license to sell cannabis product, or
right.
they manufacture or cultivate cannabis product? Yes. Yeah, so what we do is we implement what's called a brand activation counter, right? So imagine kind of like a Clinique counter at a Nordstrom or something like that.
Exactly.
We're cutting a lot of space down here, but to get it to 2,500 square feet, we want to be able to really have the customer experience should be flow and service oriented, and the parking lot helps, the bike rack helps, the fact that the proximity to downtown helps. Given the space, we'll probably only have space for 2 to 4 brand activation counters. And we could reserve one that's for a Hayward manufacturer or cultivator. I mean, my goal is to have a good relationship with all the folks that have been permitted. And there's no reason not to give them an opportunity to set up a pop-up. And we can probably do it, like you said, every month or every semi-year.
Okay. All right. That's all. Those are all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Stevens.
Thank you, Chair. I have 4 questions. And the first one is, I'm really interested in why is downtown the concentration for cannabis retail? And I'm specifically interested in why during the March 2019 council meeting was the buffer reduced from 1,000 to 500 feet? I'm just very interested in understanding a little bit about the theory of that.
I can answer it up to a point, and I think I might need to ask for either Michael's assistance or some other staff's assistance. But my general understanding is when the RFP process was concluded and the 3 retail cannabis operators were selected, really downtown area was zoned for this area, for this particular land use being commercial cannabis retail. And what had happened was we received 3 applications, and some of those applications were within 1,000 feet of each other. So to some degree, we ran into kind of a processing obstacle that we didn't really anticipate, where whoever submitted their application first, do they set the buffer, or do the applications themselves, because they were submitted, set the buffer? So I believe the direction that City Council provided to staff was just to reduce the buffer overall, to give them the opportunity to apply and be ultimately approved or denied by City Council. Sarah or Michael, I'm not sure if you want to jump in on that, or if you had any more perspective on that as well.
No, I was going to say that's pretty accurate. And as far as, downtown being the concentration, that was the direction that the City Council wanted to go. They wanted to permit a limited number of cannabis dispensaries, and the location they wanted them to be was in downtown. They did not want them to be in satellite commercial centers that were closer to other residential uses, and downtown was the chosen location in the city of Hayward to permit those the cannabis dispensaries.
Thank you very much. My second question is, are there any studies that demonstrate that there is an increase in economic activity for the surrounding businesses resulting from cannabis retail?
I don't believe we have any studies, at least specific to Hayward. There may be our economic development division may have that. I might defer that answer to the applicant, to whether in their existing locations, whether they've seen a positive benefit to their commercial neighbors. But me personally, I do not have that data.
Yeah, I can provide a brief response, and I think Patrick can also provide a response. But I can tell you, just based on the store we just opened in San Bernardino, the 7-Eleven and the Subway that are in the same strip mall had their highest grossing days over the course of the grand opening weekend. And it has been, especially now with COVID and cannabis businesses being essential businesses, without a doubt, real estate developers and folks in the real estate industry that are leasing spaces in new cities, as I'm continuously applying, they are more and more interested to have us as operators because of that exact reason, is drawing traffic to their center and potentially drawing other businesses that want to lease. I don't have any factual data on hand, but I believe that there is some out there. And I think Patrick, having done some retail developments, can speak a little more on it.
Yeah, thank you, Raj. The cannabis use for a cannabis customer is no different than any other grouped shopping trip. Shopping centers exist for one reason: convenience and group shopping. So when I say that this particular use, I believe, will be accretive to folks acquainting themselves, folks from outside of Hayward, having reason to stop on their way home, grab a bite to eat, explore. I sincerely mean that because this particular good is, for some folks, a staple good that they have incorporated in their lifestyle and they're going to return to multiple times throughout the year. So providing them with a convenient opportunity that's parked properly, well lit, safe, I do believe will actually add to the downtown and help bolster the economic redevelopment efforts that I'm familiar with that are occurring, while other retail tenants are under severe pressure right now. They were under pressure pre-COVID. Demand was shrinking, and now they're under they're in duress, frankly. So seeing a viable new building with a upbeat tenant most definitely will help to perpetuate the goals for downtown and other parts of the city.
Thank you. What's the process of earmarking a tax for a specific use in the city? Is that something that City Council does?
This is Mike Vigili with the City Attorney's Office. What you describe earmarking, well, the City Council would make the decisions during the budget process as to how different tax revenues are going to be allocated. That's how sort of general tax revenues are allocated. I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Thank you. And then my final question is, I'd like somebody to compare and contrast the difference between a cannabis dispensary and a liquor store.
I mean, I'll take a stab at the answer, but please feel free to elaborate if I'm missing the point. I think to a degree, I think there is no difference, but it really depends how you look at it. I mean, I think both are controlled substances, but I believe at least with cannabis use, there have been more studies at least identifying that there is a medical benefit for it. But for the most part, they are both controlled substances. They both require individuals to be of a certain legal age to use it, and they are both retail operations for the most part. Like I said, I think really over the years, I think there's just been more studies and more analysis and more of an understanding that cannabis, as opposed to alcohol, really provides more of a greater medical benefit.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Stevens. I appreciate your last question because I was thinking something similar. I was kind of thinking about smoke shops. I was thinking, you don't smoke cigarettes in a smoke shop, but how do we look at the difference in the city of a smoke shop versus a marijuana retailer? In particular, because I thought we just passed something that said we wanted to ban flavored tobacco, particularly as it related to its proximity. One of the main reasons was because of its proximity to sensitive use areas like schools and other locations. So in this particular case, we're looking at an applicant who's looking to have those sensitive use buffers reduced even further. And, cannabis products do have names that would be attractive to children or kids. So, Marcus, I think that was kind of my question too. So is it kind of the same premise that, the difference between a cannabis shop and a smoke shop is that studies show cannabis is healthier than tobacco? I mean, is that the rationale?
What I can say is in late 2016, when we had our election, I think overwhelmingly California supported Prop 64. And I think our city council and our elected really listened to that as an indication to allow medical and recreational cannabis in Hayward. So I understand that doesn't probably answer your question, but I think there are some differences between the abuse of tobacco and alcohol compared to cannabis use.
So do studies not show the same abuse?
It could be. Honestly, I'm not too familiar with those studies, whether they work in favor of cannabis or work against cannabis. Unfortunately, I don't have an answer for you.
Thank you. And then to the applicant, I think you had said that your training programs would vary between 2 and 6 weeks. What would drive that variation?
Chair, thank you. I actually want to just touch on your last question that you asked Marcus, if I may. And like Marcus said, there's no literal empirical data at this moment. But currently, as it stands, really the main difference is that while there was a gray market medical industry going on in California for such a long time, and after Colorado and Washington went through their first year, the tax revenues doubled from their original projections. They were being allocated to things that helped the community. California said, hey, we're kind of the king of this, and we should now implement something and regulate this and start taxing folks on this. And really, if you look at it from this perspective, and I had mentioned this to a council member in Union City that's just against cannabis, generally speaking, from a traditional standpoint, you take your son and daughter to Safeway, and there is a pharmacy aisle that you go by, or a pharmacy section. That is a controlled, regulated substance. Likewise, there's also a alcohol aisle in that same Safeway, and that's the same thing. I think education is really going to be the key for our industry to educate consumers on what to use for certain things or what not to use, how not to abuse it. When people go to a liquor store, they kind of know what they want, and they're kind of in and out. There is no, there's no security guard. There is an identification check. Our industry is new, so the regulations and protocols surrounding it are going to be heavily weighted now as this continues to normalize, and everyone sees that it's just another retail store selling a controlled substance, and that it can be operated safely and securely without having any minors have access to the property, let alone get inside. I think it'll be something that we'll see more commonly throughout the state and the U.S.
Yeah, I think my question was kind of more fundamental to a ban that we just put on smoking flavored tobacco in the city. And there was a real passionate presentation about it, and, how close, tobacco is sold to schools and to other sites, and why we need to, ban it in Hayward. And there was a big play on youth. And I just feel like a lot of that same argument can be applied to to marijuana dispensaries. And yet we're hearing a completely different story when marijuana dispensaries come forward, how happy they are, how good they are, how, they make people healthy and all this other kind of stuff. So to me, in my head, it's just from a policy perspective, making sure we're making policy based off of, consistent set of practices, I think was my bigger point to city staff around that. But I appreciate your response to that. So what about the training? Can you go back to that question?
Yes, absolutely. So it's 2 to 4 weeks. It depends on the level of training from the employee. If the employee, the experience from the employee. If the employee is coming from another cannabis store, poach may not be the right word, but if I go to a store and I find someone that I like that lives in the vicinity, I give them a business card. I haven't done that in 6 months due to COVID, but employee retention is just the biggest thing to operate a seamless and efficient retail store. And some retailers, forget that. I want my general manager focusing on maintaining compliance, how to drive more revenue, how to help the community better, not retraining employees every 5 minutes. So that's where the difference comes in. Also, if we see an employee struggling, but we think they can be a good fit, they need a little bit more time. It was just a general 2 to 4 week thing. It can be done in 2 weeks.
Got it. Thank you for that. And then also, what have you learned from your other businesses that you'll apply to this particular business in Hayward to make sure that, you know, whatever problems or issues you may have experienced in the past, you won't experience here?
Yeah, really. I was in marketing and advertising before I got in the commercial industry, commercial cannabis industry, and the customer retail experience when I first visited some of the retail stores, whether they were in Washington or here, a lot of standing in line, and I didn't like that per se. I want the customer experience to be good. I want them to feel welcome. And that's one of our big drawing points for our brand. One thing that we learned quickly is, you know, the opening, how to manage the first week. You guys may have seen it with cookies. That was something that we just saw in San Bernardino, and I've seen in Washington, and it's something that we're going to try to do a little differently, kind of maybe a soft opening. Once we get our certificate of occupancy and the state license, that's all in place, do a soft opening for friends and family, and then do a grand opening that's where, you know, we're really, really in shape to manage that level of people. But other than that, nothing that hits me that was something that wasn't manageable.
Got it. Thank you. And then I think my last question is just for city staff. Are the hours of operation 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. consistent with the hours of operation of other dispensaries that we've permitted in the city?
Yes, yeah. The other two were also 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Just for consistency for patrolling, that they would all close and open at the same time, and we weren't giving one more of an advantage than the other.
Is that the same with the delivery? The hours of delivery, Marcus, is 9 a.m. to 9 p.m.?
For this particular user, yes, those hours would be consistent.
Got it. Thank you. Those are all of my questions, but I'm remiss in not asking Commissioner Patton if he had any questions. So, Commissioner Patton, do you have any questions? Commissioner Patton, I believe you have to press *6 to come off of mute if you have any questions. Okay, well, hearing none, let's go ahead and move on to public comments, and then we will have a chance for commissioners to ask more questions and to have any other additional comments they want to make after our public comment period. So moving into public comments, Secretary Chan, would you mind facilitating our public comment period this evening?
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Thank you. If you wish to speak and you're using the Zoom application, please click the raise hand button. If you are dialing in, press *9 to raise your hand on the phone and use *6 to unmute yourself when called to speak. If you are streaming the meeting through Zoom on your computer but dialing in via phone, please mute yourself so that there is no feedback sound during the meeting. If there is disruptive feedback or excessive noise during the meeting, your audio will be disabled. All right, Chair, currently we have 2 speakers. The first one will be Greg. I'm going to ask.
Thank you. Welcome back, Greg. You have 3 minutes.
1 second. 1 second.
Oh, okay.
Hello?
Hi, Greg. Welcome back. You have 3 minutes.
Sorry. Okay.
Okay.
First thing I want to say straight off, just because it's legal, it's not good. I mean, alcohol is legal. Alcohol has to be controlled too. We have too much of that downtown. The people that come in downtown do not follow the rules. You look all over town now, you see cookies bags on the ground. You see them in the streets. You see them, the speeding that goes on all the streets around there. You know, C Street or B Street should be 15 miles an hour through there with all the sidewalks that have crosswalks there. People go speeding through there. Motorcycles parked on. Police presence is not there. They may have said they are. They are not there. I'm downtown. I promote downtown. I'm downtown all the time. I promote all the businesses. I pay extra to go to these businesses. I buy these hardware. I go to the stores that are higher priced just to support downtown Hayward. I've been here for my whole life. 67 years old, and I'm supporting Hayward big time. A Foothill Freeway makes it a dangerous solution right now for that building. The Foothill Freeway, they go, and this is a quote from the cops, "We do not like disrupting the flow of traffic on Foothill Boulevard." They go 50 up to 60 miles an hour through there. They all want to beat the light, and that's including C Street, every intersection. The gentleman said that there was, he said this was not, it was off the main drag. Oh, this is the main drag. It is the main drag. It's not off the main drag. It's central downtown Hayward, and it's hard. It's the heart, and it's a blind curve coming around from D Street, which they come at high rates of speed. You talk to the police, how many accidents are there? I see it every day. There's an accident of some kind, and you're going to have the schools there. Hayward High and Bret Hart, they walk by there by the hundreds during school when school gets back in session. Those are impressionable kids. Those kids are going to be getting, just like we did when we were in high school, go get somebody to buy you beer. These guys are going to get people to buy the marijuana. It is not this high-end business that just because it looks, you put a nice shiny coat on it doesn't mean it's great. I mean, I just do not, and that parking lot you have there for the building, it is shared by the salon, and the salon has a lot of hairdressers in there, and they use it. So that's not a unique place for them to park. So that's going to be shared, and there's a lot of people that go in there. See if there was anything else. Oh, the type of business. I saw one of the commissioners there laughing about 7-Eleven and the food to people that they brought increased business. Yes, the Munchie District, the high-end restaurants, and all the good businesses are not going to prosper from this. They're not going to prosper. They didn't bring in anything.
Greg, you're just at about time, so do you want to make any final comments and wrap up, sir?
No, just get it. This place does not have enough. They're not going to be taking care of the parking garages. They're not going to be taking care of the speeding traffic. It's nothing to do with them, but they're going to affect it. And there's going to be big time. I'm there every day.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you for your comments this evening, and thanks for calling back in. We appreciate what you had to say. Have a good evening. Ms. Chan, do you have the next caller?
Yes, thank you. The next caller is Kim Huggett. Kim, can you please unmute yourself?
Yes, I can. I apologize for the poor audio, but I will just power through on this. I'm Kim Huggett. I'm president of the Hayward Chamber of Commerce. I'm also on the Downtown Hayward board, but they have not taken a position on this site. However, I have worked downtown Hayward virtually every working day and a lot of holidays for the last 10 years. And my office is currently directly across the street from Cookies. So I've had a great opportunity to observe operations there. The security, the safety, the traffic has not been a problem. I have to say I'm quite pleased for a business that's getting about 200 people a day. They have monitored things quite well with the security and the cameras, and our downtown officers are pleased with the operations there. And also not an aroma issue either. Of course, that's written into the use permit. But so I can say that that for my observation and that of my staff, I don't have the observation that the previous speaker did. There's not cookies bags lying around. I think they have taken to heart the restrictions on their use permit. My letter of support is in the attached documents. for tonight's agenda. The Jiva will be 2 blocks away from my office. We've reviewed the Jiva business plan, met with the management team, and were impressed with their professionalism and their experience in the industry, as well as their dedication to safety, security, and community service. It fits in an environment that the city has tried to create in the downtown entertainment zone, which, by the way, includes the Hayward Police Department's North Division Command Office at the corner of C and Main Street. Within 2 blocks of my office, there are 26 alcohol-related businesses. The city has clearly determined that this is an area of a specific environment for our community. And in that respect, I see Jiva fitting in well, especially since we know what doesn't work on that particular peninsula, if you want to call it. It certainly didn't help that the 2 prior businesses were not engaged at all in community life or corporate citizenship. So I'm very much encouraged by Jiva's track record, the professionalism and experience in their staff and their training, their commitment to working with other downtown businesses. And I'm looking forward to them coming and opening up business on that lot. So I encourage you to vote approval for the conditional use permit. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Huggett. We appreciate those comments. Ms. Chan, any additional speakers on this topic?
Thank you, Chair. We have one more call in. Phone number 510, ending in 989. Please press *6 to unmute yourself.
Hello, caller. You are on with the Planning Commission.
Mr. Chair.
Oh, yes. Oh, Commissioner Patton, how are you?
I'm sorry. I've had a problem with my audio.
No problem.
I do have some.
It looks like he.
Yes, I do have some comments when you get a chance.
Sir, okay, Commissioner Patton, let me wrap up public comments, and then I will call on you as the first commissioner to make comments when we get into commissioner comments, which I think is going to be now. Just let me do one quick double check with Secretary Chan. Secretary Chan, are there any additional callers on this topic?
Thank you, Chair. No, we are finished with public comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Chan. We will go ahead and close the public comments period for this public hearing item, and we will now move on to commissioner comments. Commissioner Patton, the floor is yours for any comments or questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let's see, my only comment on this application is that I reviewed the staff report, and there was a conclusion there that the site is not considered historic nor contains any historic significance based on a consultant evaluation. That report addresses the physical site, which are the buildings and the grounds. However, there's no discussion of the activity that previously occurred on this site. And I'm not talking about the crab shack, I'm talking about the Hayward Fishery. The Hayward Fishery was a restaurant in this building that was there probably at least 50 years, which I think under the historic preservation ordinance which is the basis for my concern and for this conversation. A historic activity is not just physically buildings on a site, but an activity can be considered a cultural resource. Having been a person of a certain age who grew up in the East Bay, the Hayward Fishery was an iconic and probably maybe the most iconic restaurant to ever be located in Hayward. For most of my lifetime, the 2 best-known fish houses in the East Bay were Spinger's in Berkeley and the Hayward Fishery. The building may not be significant, but I would suggest that we consider the history of that business to be important. The only physical reminder of the business that I can see is, I think, the blade sign on the north side of the building, and maybe Marcus, you can pull that up if you have it. But I think it was originally internally illuminated. It's an older sign that projects, I think, out over the sidewalk. I guess my question is for the applicant. This may be an opportunity to somehow pay homage, or although it may not be a CEQA issue, for me it's a project issue. But I think we ought to try to do the best of our ability to retain some historical uses that were popular in this city. And this was for a very long period of time. And perhaps as a part of the applicant's community benefit package, I'd like to hear any ideas the applicant may have on how to pay homage to the Hayward fishery, and perhaps it's retaining the sign or donating the sign to the Historical Preservation Society, or even maybe a small room inside of the dispensary that has photographs or newspaper articles and somehow addresses the fact that the Hayward fishery was an important part of the city for a long time, and maybe that could be something you can incorporate it into the decor within the business. So I'd like to hear the applicant's thoughts on this issue.
If I may, this is Patrick Rosco. I'm the property owner. I've heard a lot of fantastic stories about the building, about what happened there, and it's really a fun thing to have a property that still, despite its appearance, sits close to folks' heart. The question you ask is a very good one. It's one that we asked before we bought the building, and it's one we asked again from a consultant before we made application for the use. I thought that sign was super cool. In fact, we solicited different departments that could accept actually exactly what you're saying. Donation of the sign. There was at one point in time interest on the part of, I can't recall which department it was. I think it was the Parks Department that was looking to put together an assemblage of old kind of nostalgic relics around town. And unfortunately, at such time as we were ready to remove the sign from the building, in order to make sure that someone didn't vandalize it, they changed their mind. We asked several times over several months, and ultimately did take it down after receiving the report, knowing that there would be some significant modifications being made to the building. We want to make sure that the cool old sign didn't get lost. All that being said, the results of the report did actually look to the historic use of properties during their evaluation. It's not just the structure. But the structure, it's important to note, is in such bad shape that there is no portion of what used to be a restaurant that is salvageable. No portion of the interior components, from plumbing to kitchen to storage area to finishes to outdoor seating area. And next time we've got a chance to tour with contractors, I'd be happy to give you a heads up and let you know, because I know that this is a sensitive issue in the community, and we did make extensive efforts to protect it.
Okay. I guess my question was more about moving forward. What are you prepared to do, perhaps, to address the issue as you open this business? And I'm with you. I'm surely not suggesting that anything significant with that building at all. But could the sign be donated, or again, somehow the history of the fishery be incorporated into the interior design of the space?
One idea, and this is really something that I'd have to discuss with the applicant, is that perhaps this mention of public art component some form of mural could give homage to the history of the building in some capacity, so that there is still a reference point for the community. The sign was actually donated to the party that was willing to pay for the cost to remove it. So unfortunately it is gone. I could explore the possibility of getting it back. I don't know what the condition of it is now or where it is, but it was removed from the building about a year ago.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Patton, do you have any additional questions or comments you would like to make regarding this application?
I do not.
Thank you very much. All right. Commissioners who wish to make comments, please just raise your hand and I will call on you in order in which your hands are being raised. Right now we have Commissioner Roche and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to address a few things. One is that, to the caller, Greg, I understand his concerns, and I think we've asked questions about the concerns about what the dispensary and what all the dispensaries, what kind of impact they will have on the city and downtown. And the one thing I can say to that is these are one-year permits. And, if it becomes some sort of catastrophic nightmare for the city, they obviously have to be evaluated in 1 year. And I think that's kind of a nice safety measure in the background, with the hopes, of course, the dispensaries are going to do their job to partner with the city and local organizations so that this won't become a problem. But I think, it's something to watch. It's something to continue to give feedback to the community about that so we can watch to see what happens. And, and I think those 1-year permit reviews will probably be taken very seriously because this is a new thing for the city and everyone has an interest in getting this right if we can. I wanted to also touch on Chair Bonilla's concerns about our tobacco ban a couple months ago versus sort of the similar attractive products that will be sold in the dispensaries. And it's true, it's a concern I had, just sort of in a hypocrisy that we are, we're saying tobacco is somehow bad, but cannabis is okay. And the only thing I can hope, and maybe it was a missed opportunity for tobacco shops, is, basically with all the dispensaries, we're asking them to self-enforce themselves. They have to have security guards present. They have to have a pretty strict ID checks. And, there were some questions about that, about the tobacco shops. Could that be an opportunity for them? And I don't know, I guess we'll see what happens going forward. I hope the sort of sense that dispensaries have this higher bar of security will be something we can point to in the future. Because, I think when a new liquor store comes in or tobacco shop, we're not asking them to comply with the same level of security that dispensaries are being asked to comply with. And so I share his concerns that, as a planning commission, we have to have some standard that we can point to and say, well, we always treat certain products this way. And it is a real concern that kids will get a hold of the fun products that are often for sale at cannabis dispensaries. So I hope we can also sort of watch that and be more honest about that, about what our standard is there. So thank you, Chair Bonilla, for bringing that up. I also wanted to echo Commissioner Andrews. I think the sculpture idea on the corner would be great because from what I've seen from the architectural drawings, it will be an inviting building, that is a bit of a gateway location as you head into Foothill Boulevard, and some sort of community art or would be really nice. I totally support that, Commissioner Andrews. And finally, I really encourage the applicant to partner with the city and the local organizations like Keep Hayward Clean and Green, and also the Downtown Streets team. Do your part with the rest of the businesses downtown to be a part of this community, so that dispensaries are end up being benefit to downtown. And finally, thank you for your in-depth business plan. You're obviously well thought out on all this and have a lot of experience to it, and maybe that will really help the downtown dispensaries to have that kind of experience being brought to the other organizations. So thank you and good luck, and that's all I had, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Roche. Commissioner Ali Sullivan.
Thank you, Chair. A quick question for the applicant and then a couple comments. Just on the concerns, obviously there's 2 other stores selling a similar product in very close proximity to your store. I'm curious if you have any concerns about the, I mean, you must not because you're moving forward with opening up your store adjacent to the others, but any thoughts on or any concerns about the proximity of the other 2 stores? And then as far as your customer segmentation, are you looking for a mainstream customer or is it a more of a premium customer? In my mind, I'm sort of envisioning almost like a Mad Men aesthetic, if you're familiar with that brand in Southern California. And so I'm curious if that's sort of the vision that you have for Jiva.
Yeah, good questions, Commissioner. I'll go backwards. I hope I don't get affiliated with MedMen as they have been a catastrophic financial mess, but their stores are definitely nice stores, and they integrate technology with the customer retail experience, and we will too. Okay. Our we call them hospitality associates. They're going to have an iPad. You can order directly from them. You'll get a text message when your order is ready in fulfillment, and you can go pick it up. You'll get a text message to go pick it up and pay. So while you're in the store, you're not waiting in a line. You're not sitting around. You can actually look around. Our goal is to get customers in and out within 5 to 7 minutes. The daily users, as I call them, they know what they want. They're going to order online on their phone. They're going to go to the express pickup and head out. And excuse me, can you repeat the first part of your question?
Just any concerns about the proximity to other stores?
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that, and you guys were talking about the buffer zones. I actually wrote a letter. I had a different site previously on A Street originally, and a little background on that story is that anyhow, regardless of that, I knew it was 1,000 feet away. I knew the city wanted to have this in downtown. There were select parcels that were available. The reduction of the buffer actually allowed me to, Pat and I, to hook up and use this property. There's really no concerns. It's just the nature of the business. There's nothing much that we can do. Cookies has I like to call it a cult following. I think each store will bring a different element to the city, and you'll see different demographic come to each store. We don't want to be the bougie high-end store. Not to say that Hayward doesn't deserve that, but I think one thing that we will do to make sure that the daily user can come to our store. I think the main thing that happens when people go to stores is now that there's 3 stores all within 1,000 feet of each other or 1,500 feet is parking, is access, is customer service, and then really for the daily user, the price point. Do they carry the same brand that I like, that I've been using, and is it the same price? So we'll price match across the board. Our original feel was really geared towards women and the soccer mom, if you will, the new user. But to make sure that we're hitting on all scopes of users, price matching is something that we'll do that I'm not sure other folks do, but we will.
Thank you. The couple final thoughts here. I'm sort of viewing this through 3 lenses. First off, in hearing the applicant and also hearing some public comments from a few parties, I'm not, nothing's been presented here that makes me believe that this retail business would be any worse from a trash or traffic perspective than any other type of retail business in that corridor. And so I don't think there's anything inherently worse about this particular business. The other piece of it, obviously, there's a clear incentivized regime for the applicant to ensure compliance with the very strict rules and regulations at state, local, county level on an annual basis. So I think that also creates an additional hook for them to ensure strict compliance. And then finally, the issue has already been legislated at the state level. It's been legislated from a proposition standpoint. There's a regulatory regime that the city has put in place as it relates to these businesses. And so, the question I think is not whether we want this type of business downtown, but whether or not the applicant has met the requirements of city rules and regulations. And so that is how I'm viewing this. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for those comments. All right, Commissioner Andrews, you're up next.
Well, I was going to say what Commissioner Roche said is that you have 1 year and 1 year to make sure that you are being a good neighbor, and to the caller that they have 1 year to really make sure they're being a good business here in Hayward and not being a nuisance. So if you have any issues or you see anything that doesn't cut the mustard on what you expect from a business of this caliber, then definitely give Hayward PD a call, put in something in Access Hayward, let the planning department know that they're not following the rules, and that's something that all businesses should really have that kind of accountability, but especially something like this. So please, if you see other businesses that are becoming a nuisance, you should do the same for those types of businesses as well. So I just wanted to remind the caller of that as well. And then also, I'm happy that Commissioner Roche also mentioned Downtown Streets team. I know that the Downtown Hayward Improvement Association also has a cleanup crew that is downtown. So I would be interested to see a business like this contribute on other parts of Hayward. There's a lot of focus on downtown, but there's other parts of Hayward that need cleanup and are impacted by businesses and their products being spread throughout Hayward. So I would say if we were to approve something like this as part of the conditions of approval, to not just focus on cleaning up by the business, but their community service hours be part of Keep Hayward Clean and Green, have an adopt a block, and then make sure that it's an area that we see a lot of trash collecting. So that's something that I'll be interested in seeing. And I'm glad Commissioner Patton mentioned the fishery sign. It's unfortunate that there wasn't a process around what was happening with this sign. It sounds like there was kind of an executive decision that was made a little bit on that. And I'm not sure if the applicant would like to speak to maybe talking to the Hayward Area Society, Historical Society, of what they should have done with the sign. I don't know if that was an opportunity there before it was removed.
Yeah, we did, and we also got a permit.
Okay. Okay, great. Well, as you noted before, I definitely am the public art commissioner on this commission, and I always bring up the opportunities for public art. So if there is an opportunity to bring back the sign and it could be in working condition, I think it would be a really cool tribute to have that as your sculpture. It would save you a couple of bucks if you were able to get it back. If not, I'm sure there's other art that you can think about and work with the city on. But those are just some of the comments I had. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Andrews. Commissioner Stevens.
Thank you. So first off, I'd like to say that I really appreciate all the previous efforts of staff and the council to get us to the place that we are today. I support Proposition 64 and, of course, the sale of cannabis products in Hayward. And I really appreciate Jiva's business model and your architectural development. I think it's a really first-class design. But I'm bothered by something. I'm bothered that we're racing into retail cannabis without any really good studies. And we're concentrating all of this in our downtown. And this isn't really, to me, a story about the sale of cannabis. It's really a story about how we use our land and how we plan our downtown. So I looked at the downtown specific plan for guidance. And in the introduction, it specifically says that downtown Hayward, as the heart of the city, as a destination for visitors and residents. And with all the great new development that's coming downtown, I think that we're kind of getting there. We're kind of getting there to catalyze downtown as a great place. Another part of the specific plan, it specifically says that stakeholders seek a greater diversity in business, housing, and mixed-use development. Seems like to me that 3 cannabis dispensaries plus the Garden of Eden, which is to the north, really seems like an overconcentration in a relatively small area, and it's probably an oversaturation of the market. I also would say that the applicant has stated themselves that they expect that there's going to be they're going to move to an online sale, which will mean a decrease in foot traffic. which means that the jump in foot traffic and people going and visiting our businesses probably will not be realized. I think it's also important to realize that, you know, cannabis is a controlled substance, and it really does create a challenge for a lot of folks. And I think that, you know, we're going to be finding that there's a lot of challenges for people moving forward. So I kind of got to thinking about what would it be like if we were actually thinking about 3 or 4 liquor stores in downtown? And I started looking at the parallels between land use and alcohol sale in downtown, and there's study after study about the challenges that creates, about increased social disorder and other issues. And the fact is, we don't know what cannabis is going to be, so why are we experimenting with downtown Hayward? And I respect that this is a CUP and it's validated every year. But I would also say that our discussion that we had regarding smokeless and flavored tobacco products, you know, we found out that, you know, we can't really police that. And I realize that these retailers are policing themselves, but I also recognize that resources are scarce. So I'm a little skeptical about how effective this is really going to be once it's actually granted. I also realize that, you know, and the applicant mentioned that, you know, retail in Hayward is difficult, and post-COVID, it's probably even going to be a bigger issue. And I've, you know, also been thinking a lot about, you know, is retail dead in locations like Hayward? Is it ever going to come back? And if we want retail, does it need a subsidy? And if it needs to be subsidized, why are we not using and leveraging the cannabis retail as the mechanism to finance the things we want in our downtown plan? So I'm not supportive of this simply because I don't think it's consistent with the downtown specific plan. I prefer to see cannabis distributed beyond. I would support it if there was actually money, the tax money that was actually being generated by this was going into downtown to actually make downtown a more vibrant place and to help those businesses thrive and meet the goals of the specific plan. And I thank you for your time.
Commissioner, I believe you're on mute, or Chair. Sorry.
I was. Thank you. Thank you for those very thoughtful comments, Commissioner Stevens. You clearly did your homework with this public hearing tonight, but we appreciate what you had to say. My comments are, you know, just hearing, you know, kind of what Commissioner Stevens said. You know, I share similar concerns. I do think that, you know, this could work though at this particular location. I agree with the public art, so you know this is probably going to end up moving forward. And if it does, I would like to see something with public art definitely, you know, included in this site. I appreciate the comprehensive nature of the business plan that we got from the applicant. You know, but again, when I was looking at some of these products, they just look like they can be marketed to kids. So fundamentally, I have a problem with that. But those are really my main comments. Is I do agree with the sculpture or the piece of public art, especially on such a prominent corner within our city. Whatever we can do to really make this a lot more attractive to those that are passing by, I think would be good. Maybe not even necessarily users of the establishment. And then also, you know, I know Commissioner Andrew said, you know, adopt a block. You know, maybe you can start by, you know, adopting a parking lot. You know, we heard that there's, you know, issues with the parking lot across the street. I don't know if there's something you can do with the city to partner to address that, but I just think that there could be a lot of opportunities for this business and businesses like this to really start changing the reputation of how the community may see you. So you're more of a community partner and more of a community resource than perhaps, you know, like a liquor store would be or a bar would be, because I think that's a lot of how these establishments are currently perceived today. Those are really my comments. I don't see any other commissioners wanting to make comments on this topic. Actually, Commissioner Roche just put up her hand. So Commissioner Roche, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to ask Raja, the applicant, what is your experience with these products, being really attract colorful and cute names and stuff like that, as far as being attractive to kids? What have you done in your other stores in the past to lessen that effect? You're on mute.
Sorry about that. That's a good question. It's interesting. Every city has a different viewpoint on this. San Francisco, for example, told Cookies that you had to change the name of the store. And most of the products that we carry and that we have partnerships with our distributors, I like to have a store that has a medical kind of identity with a recreational vision. So I think our products will be different than what someone like Cookies carries. Cookies carries very colorful products. A lot of the products you see in their store are subsidiary brands of theirs on the production side. I'm not vertically integrated. I'm just retail. I haven't gotten any complaints per se, or anyone that has said, hey, these products are attractive to kids. I mean, they're not flavored products like the vape epidemic. And back to that conversation, just to touch on it, it was high school kids were using this stuff because of the fact that it was flavored. And I think high school kids may have been using pot over the last 30 years, but it hasn't become something that's been a problem, I suppose, where the vape thing really hit the headlines because it was becoming an epidemic. I'm not really sure in terms of what people are saying about products being geared towards kids. But I can say that from the products that we carry and even the store in LA, for example, where he has like 16,000 different SKUs, certain brands are, but just being colorful doesn't necessarily mean it's being marketed to kids. I think cannabis is not marketed to kids in all actuality, where vaping was kind of. The strain names are also, they vary, but we'll do our best not to have products in there that if it's a product that looks like it's, for kids, it's something that we probably don't need to carry. There's so much variety and opportunity to carry different products from different manufacturers and distributors across the state. I don't think we need to focus on those type of products.
All right, thank you. That'd be great. I think if all the industry keeps an eye out on that, it's going to be helpful going forward. Thank you. And then, Chair, I just had one more question, probably for staff, or maybe not a question, but a comment. So I know from the City Council, this was a sort of a greater plan to try 3 dispensaries in the downtown area. And so my understanding is that's it. This is 3. That's all we're going to have. That's all going to be evaluated once each year permit. Sorry for my dog. Once each year permit comes up, and that was sort of like a directive from the City Council as far as how they wanted to treat this in downtown. Is that right? I just wanted to be clear with that because I appreciate Commissioner Stevens' comments, and I feel like there was a sort of some thought going into it, and maybe that will prove not to work out. But my understanding, that's the plan.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, thank you. That's all, Chair.
Thank you. You sparked one more question. I guess this will be my final question, and it's to Detective Wright. Detective Wright, I know that the police department, through your guys' partnerships, does undercover operations at maybe bars or liquor stores to make sure that products aren't getting into the hands of those that shouldn't have them. Do you guys have similar type of things that go on at these cannabis clubs?
So we actually have not done that since Cookies is the first one that has opened up. However, we have been brainstorming ideas on how to conduct decoy operations. So we let all of our establishments know in Hayward that we're going to do decoy operations like tobacco shops, alcohol, and cannabis. It's not a secret that we do decoy operations because we want them to always be checking IDs. So that's something that we will eventually do, obviously, once more retail shops are up and running.
Okay, thank you for that. All right, Commissioners, so do we have a motion, or what are we doing with this public hearing item this evening?
I see a raised hand there. Chair.
Oh, Commissioner Ali Sutton.
Yeah, at the risk of my first action being jumping in here and making a
Guys,
motion.
I need you to be quiet now because I'm going to talk.
I was going to say I'd make a motion that we recommend to City Council approval of the conditional use permit application based on the required findings and subject to the conditions of approval.
All right, so Commissioner Ali Sullivan has made the motion. Your first meeting, your first motion. I like it, a man of action. All right, do we have a second?
I'm so sorry. My kids were talking and I want to hear the motion because I think I want to second it, but would you mind repeating your motion?
Sure, it's the motion that's in the staff recommendation essentially. So it's to approve the conditional use permit for this applicant with, of course, the conditions of approval that were stipulated in the application.
Sorry, Chair. I just wanted to clarify, both Commissioner Sullivan and the Chair, this is merely a recommendation to the City Council for approval. So I just want that to be clear within the motion.
Okay, and so I will second the motion. Thank you, Commissioner Ali Sullivan.
All right.
Chair?
Yes.
Can we add an amendment to the recommendation?
You'll have to ask the maker of that recommendation.
Commissioner, are you receptive to a friendly amendment? Commissioner Ali Sullivan?
Yeah, I'm amenable to that. I'm assuming it as it relates to public art.
Yes, I would like to add a condition of approval to volunteer with Keep Hayward Clean and Green for at least 20 hours and adopt a parking lot or block.
Commissioner Andrews, my one concern, sorry not to interrupt, I just want to make sure, understanding that this is the last cannabis application that we're getting, I just want to, for fairness purposes, I just want to know if this was originally asked for the previous applicants. I think the applicant sounds like they're amendable to some form of public art component, but
yeah. I know the recommendation for public art was added for Auntie Honey's, I believe, and there is public art on the Cookies location. So that I was getting ready to add on as well. But the cleanup part, I can't remember if that was added for the other two. But given this is such a prominent location, I just want to make sure that this particular applicant is doing their part for the city.
So Commissioner Andrews, the two conditions you want to add are for 20 hours of community service to keep Hayward clean and green, adopting a parking lot or a block. Is there any other additional conditions of approval you're considering?
And ensuring there's public art component to the site.
And ensuring public art component. Okay, so the applicant, do you have any issues with any of that real quick before I ask the maker of the motion if he's okay with it? Raj?
Yeah, no, I'm okay with it.
Okay. Commissioner Ali Sullivan, are you okay with those?
I am. I think just, for comment's sake, I do have concerns about shifting the burden of cleanliness of a municipal parking lot onto a private individual. Obviously, the individual has noted that they're amenable to it. I think there's a distinction between cleaning up a block versus cleaning up, I'm assuming it's the municipal parking lot that we're referring to that's adjacent to the area. So, assuming the applicant is amenable to this, then I'll accept the amendments as proposed.
Okay, and it's so it's a parking lot or a block, whatever he prefers.
Right.
And it sounds like you said you accept those?
Correct.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you both. Commissioner Roche is the seconder of the motion. Do you accept those additional conditions?
Yeah, I accept the additional additions. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. So, Ms. Chan, let me just repeat this motion. So, Commissioner Ali Sullivan made the motion that the Planning Commission recommends, thank you, Marcus, to City Council that that they approve the conditional use permit for this application for the proposed commercial cannabis retail dispensary with an ancillary retail delivery service based on the analysis set forth in this report and the findings and the subject and the conditions of approval, with the amendment to add 3 conditions of approval. One of them is for 20 hours of volunteering for Keep Hayward Clean and Green, to adopt a parking lot or a street, and to install public art on this property. All right, so we have a maker, we have a seconder. Let's call for the vote. Ms. Chan, would you mind, please?
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes, we could.
Thank you. Commissioner Ali Sullivan.
Aye.
Commissioner Andrews.
Aye.
Commissioner Goldstein.
Aye.
Commissioner Patton.
I want to thank Commissioner Ali Sullivan for his lack of fear, and I hope you hold on to that as we move forward. Aye on the motion.
Commissioner Roche.
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens.
No.
No? I'm sorry, Commissioner Stevens?
No.
Thank you. Chair Bonilla.
Yes. Okay,
Thank
so
you.
the motion, thank you. The motion passes with 6 aye votes and 1 no vote, and no abstentions. Thank you. Moving along to the next piece of agenda, the next piece of business on our agenda would be the approval of the Planning Commission meeting minutes of September 10th. I hope you all had a chance to review those. Do we have a motion to approve?
I move the item.
Excellent. Thank you, Commissioner Andrews. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Stevens. Secretary Chan, would you mind doing a roll call vote?
Chair Bonilla, point of clarification, if I may.
Yeah.
For city staff and for the attorney, is this an item that I should be abstaining from as I was not a commissioner at the time, or can I vote for it?
You'll vote, but your vote will likely be an abstention. Okay. Secretary Chan, do you want to call the vote?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
For approval of the Planning Commission meeting minutes of September 10th. Commissioner Ali Sullivan.
Abstain.
Commissioner Andrews.
Aye.
Commissioner Goldstein.
Aye.
Commissioner Patton.
Aye.
Commissioner Roche.
Aye.
Commissioner Stevens.
Aye.
Chair Bonilla.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Denise. Thank you very much. So the September 10th minutes of the Planning Commission passed with 6 aye votes, 1 abstention, and 0 nay votes. Minutes passed. Thank you. Let's move along to our next agenda item this evening, which is oral report on planning and zoning matters. Sarah, over to you.
Thank you. So I just actually to one of the comments made by Commissioner Stevens during the earlier item, I wanted to share with the commission that on October 20th, be as part of the City Council meeting, we are going to be holding a brokers panel with the City Council. We'll have experts in industrial development, retail development, office development, residential, et cetera, asking experts a little bit about the impact that COVID-19 is having in those various sectors, what they're sort of forecasting to sort of see locally here, and what we might expect to see. So I wanted to share that with the commission. If you would like to tune in to the City Council meeting on October 20th, it might be enlightening to sort of hear from these experts. So I just wanted to share that, since that's slightly different item and probably worth your tuning in.
Thank you so much. All right. Moving along to commissioner announcements and referrals. If any commissioner would like to make any announcements or referrals, please raise your hand. Okay. Well, hearing none, I'll make one. Everyone needs to get out and vote. You know, look in your mail for your ballots, make your voice be heard. This is the time to make that happen. So please prioritize that and be a part of the solution for our government. Okay, everyone, please get out and vote. If you have any questions about voting, call the city, and I'm sure they'll be able to help you get that squared away. So with that, we will go ahead and adjourn tonight's meeting. Everyone have a great evening, and thank you for your participation this evening. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
The recording has stopped.